Hello, everyone. This is Michael Butterman, music director of the Boulder Philharmonic Orchestra. Excited to be talking with cellist Zuill Bailey, our artistic partner for the 2021 season, whose talents we're going to enjoy beginning on March 13th for a program we're calling a Celebration of Cello. And it is that because not only do we hear one work that features Zuill, the cello concerto by Schumann in a chamber arrangement. But we also are going to hear a work that features both Zuill and our principal cellist, Charles Lee, a work for two cellos and strings. In fact, that's maybe we'll begin with that. That's a piece that Charles mentioned to me sometime over the summer, a piece that he thought was attractive, and I listened to it. I thought, this is a fantastic work. And then I remember you and I spoke later that summer about what kind of pieces we might be able to do together. And I brought this up and you said, oh yeah, that's a Solima. So I thought, well, I'm not telling him anything he doesn't already know about. But it's an interesting piece, is it not, for two cellos and strings? Solima himself is a cellist, yes?
I had never heard of this piece before 2009. I'd never heard of Giovanni Solima before 2009. I was requested to play this in Australia. And I thought, well, why not? And I was so blown away. I mean, it's not long also. It's about a 12-ish minute work, but it's a duel. And it is so, what I love about it, it is so its own language, and it's rock and roll. I mean, it actually, you can't believe as a studied cellist that I get to kind of thrash. and it feels, I want to have an amplification on my cello. I want to turn the amps up. Yeah. I want to have distortion. And I just had a ball playing this with Charles, because I kept looking at him I kept giving him the side eye as we were playing. And of course, he chose the piece with you. And I was thrilled because, first of all, it's a great piece. Secondly, cellists love each other. Third, it's very, very, very rare. Think about it, that two cellists get to play in that situation. Yeah. We always have one of us. So right. It was a party, a total party. And I was thrilled that I was asked. I was thrilled that he was so wonderful and so collegial and so just a new friend. And the fact that we were able to document it, I think that everyone will see it's a riot.
It really is, especially that, for lack of a better term, cadenza in the middle.
Yeah, middle section, it's like eruption. It's like Eddie Van Halen in the 5150 Eagle that's going nuts, eruption.
That's a very good analogy. Yeah, I completely see that. So a really fun piece. Violoncelle Vibré is the name of the work. And also on this program, a work that is from the canon of great works for cello and orchestra, the cello concerto by Robert Schumann. But this is a different year, and so this is also a different version of this piece than most people will have been familiar with. Tell us a little bit about this chamber version of
Sure. Well, this process with Schumann has been a long process. First of all, let's start by acknowledging the fact that Pablo Casals, as well as Mstislav Rostropovich, two of our titans of cello players in the history of cello, both thought this was the greatest cello concerto. The difficulty with this piece, as it's written for full orchestra, has now been revealed to me, and only through what everyone's going to hear tonight is why. So, in studying this piece, I started realizing that Robert Schumann's forte and his comfort zone was writing chamber music, smaller scale works, very intimate. A lot of little code languages for his adoration of Clara, his wife, who was always on the road, and he was just pining after her. And so there were these love notes, and it was so internal for him. He was also, he had a lot of problems. I mean, he had tinnitus, the ringing in his ear, which was, they say, an A, the note A. And also he heard voices, and he felt that he was just imbalanced in his own psyche. So he conceived this piece as another one of these chamber introspective opening up of his soul. But Clara's father, who was a big presence in her life, whispered in her ear, symbolically or whatever, said, uh, Robert Schumann will never be taken seriously unless he writes larger scale works for a symphony. And she convinced him that he needed to blow this into a cello concerto for cello and orchestra. It was originally conceived as a concert piece for string quartet and cello solo, which would be kind of sitting in the format of the Schubert cello quintet, where kind of like the Mendelssohn octet, if you arrange it properly, all the voices go around in circles. So everybody shares this dialogue, like you're sitting at a dinner table. Playing this piece sitting on the front of the stage, facing this chasm of people in a concert hall, and having this thickness and beauty behind me, I found it almost impossible to be intimate, to give these communications that are indicated in the music without feeling like I was over gesticulating. That's quite a word, but I'd have to do so much more. It was not an intimate conversation.
Right.
How do you whisper and shout at the same time?
Right.
So after I found out that this, he originally wanted it to be a concert piece, I started seeing if there was ever a realization of this. And I found out that after it was published, his publisher, he went back and said, would you possibly now let me write? And they said, no. Well, and then he passed on into the next world before he could maybe even go against them. So we, the Ying String Quartet and I, decided that we should, with the help of the wonderful Philip Lasser, who's a composition teacher, friend of mine at the Juilliard School, try to recreate and boil this down to the bones of what Schumann would have wanted. And that's the version that we're going to perform tonight. We are so lucky. Oh my gosh, it took so much blood, sweat, and tears to do this because Philip sent us his version of it, and then we toured it, the Ying Quartet and I, and we had the dialogue to try to make it even more simple, to make it even more just heartbreaking, and including where I sit, including the fact that there's, instead of the dialogue between the two cellos, the dialogues between me and the viola now, voicing. So no, I guarantee you, unless someone has heard the document, which is rarely played, that the Yings and I did a few years ago, which we did on CD, this is going to be a first for everybody. And that it was again difficult, like the Schubert Traut Quintet from our earlier concert in January, with masks on, and to be in that situation, to try to have an intimate exchange was something I won't forget. I mean, it was it's not what we did, it's what it made me feel. But I was very grateful because the members of the Boulder Philharmonic were exceptional, and the sounds that we got were so beautiful. And I did something that I don't really do. I incorporated a cadenza into it. I always add something special and unique that is very personal to me. And in this particular concert, I've added a tribute to my legacy of where I've come from all of my teachers, who almost all studied with Gregor Piatigorsky. So Gregor Piatigorsky was the grandfather wise man who brought all this information and gave to all of my teachers, who then passed it on to me. And he wrote a very unique cadenza, which was not Schumann's intention at all, but he wrote it to be, when he performed it, he would add this cadenza at the very end of the piece. And I decided, as my little personal tribute to my where I come from, my family cellistic tree, since this is a celebration, I decided to put that in there. So it's also very, very rarely heard, a cadenza, let alone this one, because it's particularly difficult.
Well, that's something extra special to look forward to, and the connection with Philip Lasser is also very interesting because we heard a work that he orchestrated for piano and strings back in the fall, Erbarm dich of Bach, that Simone Dinnerstein played with us. So we have these two arrangements by him, just coincidentally. Again, this is another work that you brought to my attention. I mean, when we were thinking of works that we could do with relatively small numbers of players with a cello solo, the Schumann was, although it's not a large orchestration by some standards, it's still a work that I think of as full orchestra and cello. And I had no idea that this version existed. So my thanks to you for bringing it to my attention and for allowing all of us to share in it here on March 13th, beginning March 13th, I should say. Also on the program, by the way, music by Wagner and music by Debussy, two composers that we normally think of as writing rather large scale orchestral works. We have the Siegfried Idyll, a work that Wagner surprised his wife with on Christmas morning, with just a few players. And also this arrangement of Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, under the auspices of Arnold Schoenberg, in a very interesting chamber version. We also have a work by former member of the Boulder Philharmonic, Paul Trapkus, a work for 3 violins that I thought was an interesting complement to the Solima, work for 2 cellos and strings. So a really varied program with a couple of very unique works featuring Zuill Bailey. We're one of our 2 artistic partners for the 2021 Reimagined season. Zuill, again, thank you so much for sharing some time with us to talk about the concert. We look forward to watching and listening on the 13th. We're going to leave you now with music that Zuill and I recorded back in the early fall. This is the Träumerei of Robert Schumann, a work that he wrote for piano solo, but which has been adapted by a number of different musicians because it's just such an incredibly heartfelt and beautiful work of music, just 2 minutes long, probably.
I wanted to incorporate this program not only because it ties together the program with the Schumann Cello Concerto, but we lost one of the great cellists, musicians this year in April, not to COVID, but just we lost Len Harrell, the great American cellist. And this is one of the pieces that I heard him play, and the simplicity and just the pureness of his spirit and his virtuosity and his songfulness on the cello. I learned this piece the day after I found he passed. I'd never played the piece before. So I'd like to make this in tribute to Len Harrell and his legacy and of course his amazing impact on the music world. And it's a pleasure to bring it to your audiences.
Indeed. All right. So here it is then, the Träumerei of Robert Schumann featuring Zuill Bailey.